Okay, overview. Like what Prof. Jamil said just now, town and country planning is in the concurrent list. The ninth schedule of the Federal Constitution puts planning in the concurrent list. And the Act itself, Act 172, confers on the local authority the powers to control land use planning. That's what we learned last week. One of the powers or one of the obligations actually of local authorities is to ensure proper planning within the town, within the local authority area. Okay, and together with that, control and conservation of all lands and buildings within their local authority area. So control the land use, okay, and also control and conserve lands and buildings. Why do we do this? Conservation. It's not only for heritage property or heritage buildings, but also for the environment. Okay, control conservation. So there's two sides of conservation here. One, heritage. The other one is the environment. And Act 172 is only applicable in all states in Peninsular Malaysia except for Federal Territory. So just now, Prof. Jamil mentioned that in KL, there's the Kuala Lumpur Planning Act 1973 and also in Putrajaya. I don't think he mentioned, but all the Federal Territories, they have their own planning acts. So 1982, yeah, amended lah this one, 1982. Sarawak, okay, we have the Town and Country Planning Ordinance 1952. Sabah, we have the Town and Country Planning Ordinance 1950, quite a long time, isn't it? Even longer, even older than TCPA 1976 in Sarawak and also in Sabah. The reason being, because before 1976, all the states in Peninsular Malaysia, they have their own planning acts. It's only in 1976 that the federal government decided to unify, not really unify, to standardize the planning law, enforcing one act at the national level for Peninsular Malaysia only, except for Federal Territories. Okay, importance. Why must we have planning standards and guidelines? One, to ensure uniformity. That I remember reading your article, your paper, your test answer. This being cited by several people as one of the advantages of having legal frameworks over land development in Malaysia. Betul lah. This is correct. Uniformity. But planning standards gives uniformity in terms of land use activities by control of heights, building mass, and so on. And to ensure amenities, a minimum standard of amenities throughout the local authority areas, the provision of these amenities based on certain standards, okay, sufficient and also adequate. Amenities such as, playgrounds, such as parks and things like that. To safeguard users' comfort and convenience through provision of amenities, to safeguard, to menjaga lah atau melindungi, to safeguard the users' comfort and convenience through this, the amenities. Because after all, it's the well-being of the local authority, of the local citizens that the local authorities must ensure, isn't it? Remember our talk last week, or our lesson last week, one of the roles of the local government is to ensure the well-being of the citizens within the local authority boundary, isn't it? So one way is to ensure, to provide amenities, and two is to ensure that the amenities give the kind of comfort and convenience to the residents. To ensure safety and health, planning standards, because after all, town planning arose because of the Industrial Revolution problems brought upon by the Industrial Revolution in the UK in the mid towards the late and 19th century, the 1840s onwards, 1940, 50s, 60s, the peak of the problems brought upon by the Industrial Revolution. Enhance city or neighborhood image, especially nowadays, cities, they have what is called city imaging, city marketing. Because that's how they attract investments to come to their areas. So the local authorities, one way for them to provide employment, for instance, within their local authority area, Okay, is to ensure that certain amenities are provided for the residents and also for the workers, for the workers of the industries within their local authority area, so that the workers are happy there. They settle down in their local authority area, which gives rise to housing demand, which in turn will give rise to income from assessment rates. Everything is connected, isn't it? So it's not just a matter of aesthetics or beauty, but also there are certain reasons why the city, the local authorities want to enhance the city or neighborhood images. Okay. Now, what about definition of development? Because we say that the Town and Country Planning Act, the main one of the main aims is to provide development control. So what is meant, or what is the definition of development? So according to Section 2, as I said earlier, definitions are given at the early parts of the acts normally in Malaysia. So Section 2, development means the carrying out of any building, engineering, mining, industrial, or other similar operation in or over or under land. This is a mistake, yeah. This is a spelling mistake. So the carrying out of any operations in, over, under land. In, on, over. Oh, I think there's a comma here. In, on, over, under land. So why is over provided as well, or why is it included as well? Nowadays, there's a thing called airspace development. Airspace development. So in Malaysia, for instance, this is quite a new area. Airspace development. What we do with airspace now is maybe in KL area. If you go to curve, not curve. What's the name of that? I cannot recall the name of the shopping center that has the overhead pedestrian bridge to Alamak. But anyway, at Bangsa Village. We have Bangsa Village 1, Bangsa Village 2. We have a road separating the two developments. And we have a pedestrian bridge, an enclosed pedestrian bridge that connects Bangsa Village 1, Bangsa Village 2. That is an airspace development. So that particular development is this overland. What's meant by overland? So meaning that the planning authority also controls airspace development. Underland is something that we are also moving towards, the underground land development in Malaysia. For instance, just now I see in one of Prof. Jamil's slides, he mentioned Bandar Malaysia. The Bandar Malaysia is Malaysia City. So Bandar Malaysia is going to build an underground city. So city under the surface land. Okay. So it's coming soon to Malaysia. But we have that already, underground land development in Malaysia, but not in a large scale and mostly for infrastructure purposes and not really for commercial purposes. So Bandar Malaysia or Malaysia City is going to be the first, I would say, the first underground land development in Malaysia on a large scale and for commercial use. Actually mixed development. But anyway, it's quite interesting. So what we are familiar with is on land, meaning the surface land. But coming soon, we are going to have over and also under land. The making of, so this one is more physical. You can see something tangible. Operations. Operation is something that we can see. Another type of development is the intangible type. The making of any, no. This one is also tangible. The making of any material change. You can see this, but on an existing part of the of the land or building, you make what they call material change. Any material change in the use of any land or building or any part thereof. So the definition of material has been debated in court. So what consists or what constitutes material change? If you do only interior works, interior decoration, for instance, that does not constitute material change. But something that is significant, for instance, you add another floor, or you extend the building, or you demolish the building, or you demolish part of the building, that is considered material change. So partition and things like that inside the building may be construed as immaterial, not so material, not material change. Okay, so again, the definition of material has been debated in court and still open to challenges lah, for if there's any new cases. But generally anything interior does not constitute material change. Okay. Material change, so physically and also the use meaning if one building, the original use is residential and now is being converted into commercial, converted into a showroom, for instance, or converted into a shop, converted into an office, for instance, and that constitutes material change in the use of the building. So it needs planning permission. Okay. And finally, subdivision. So this is the intangible part, or intangible definition of development, the subdivision or amalgamation of lands, where you, from one big parcel of land, you subdivide, you divide into smaller lots, or from smaller lots, you combine into a large parcel. So these are considered development under the Planning Act in Malaysia. So again, number one, development constitutes the operation side. Second one is the use side. The third one is the intangible side of development. Okay. National Physical Planning Council, okay, NPPC, was established, like what he said just now, he mentioned, following the Highland Towers tragedy, Section 2A, established in 2002 to promote uniformity in planning law, so that, you know, at the federal level, they are aware of what's happening at the state level. Okay, chat. The reason why it only comes together twice a year, they meet only twice a year, because it's being chaired by the Prime Minister and deputy chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister. So these people are busy people, right? So they can only afford to meet twice a year or once a year or whatever, and not every month. Plus the Minister of KPKT, Housing, Urban Wellbeing, Local Government. This particular portfolio, as I said last week, is often forgotten. Urban Wellbeing, Kesejahteraan Bandar. The full portfolios are housing, urban wellbeing, local government. But we are so familiar with the housing and local government in Malaysia. KPKT. Anyway, Minister of Finance. Okay. So we have this, not only the KPKT Minister, Finance, MOF also, Energy and Natural Resources, because this is the ministry in charge of land. Chief Minister of every state, because land is under state matter, and also because planning is a concurrent item. So all the Menteri Besars, the chief ministers, they come there. They must attend the, or they are on the NPPC, on the council. Okay, together with the Minister of Federal Territory. Now, a town planner, as what Prof. Jamil mentioned just now, Anwar Musa, and also not more than 7 other members. So these people comprise the NPPC. Okay, and the functions are given according to Section 2A, Sub 2, to promote town planning as an instrument to improve the physical environment. 1, 2, to achieve sustainable development, okay, for the country, and to give advice to federal or state government. Actually, give advice, you give, but not necessarily followed. But their responsibility is to advise, to give advice to federal or state government on matters related to town planning. Again, as what Prof. Jamil said just now, since it's a concurrent matter, planning, town planning is a concurrent matter, it's up to the state whether to agree or not. But in some cases, some of the states are forward thinking, are more open, so they embrace the policies set by the NPPC. Some other states, they may think that, okay, we need to control, we need to have more developments in our state area, state boundaries. That's why some things we are not going to implement. Some of the advice we are not going to implement inside our state. Okay. He also mentioned the fact that there's a Director General, DG, DG of Town and Country Planning. Okay. Now, Town and Country Planning is the old, not old, is the is the original term, terminology for town planning. We always call it town planning, but the whole term is town and country planning. But same as, if you don't know, our department was used to be known as, now it's Department of Real Estate. But at one time, okay, our department was known as Department of Estate Management. Okay, with the name of estate management, some people was mistaken. They thought we are in charge of estates, of plantations. So that was an old way of thinking, estate management. So we decide to bring the department into the current times. Okay, so we changed the name of our department into Department of Real Estate. Same with town and country planning, because of the fact that they have country, so it gives a certain vibe or certain negative punya image. Now they modernize their department. Previously, it was known as the Department of Town and Country Planning, JPBD. The modern name, they have rebranded themselves into Plan Malaysia. It's the same thing. But they have rebranded, their department into Plan Malaysia. Okay, just for your knowledge. Now, this one, Plan Malaysia, formerly known as JPBD. So it's a federal agency. The federal agency responsible for town planning is Plan Malaysia, and the DG is the secretary of the MPPC that we mentioned just now in 2A. Functions of the DG: want to report and advise the NPPC. So just now, the chair of the NPPC is the Prime Minister, but he needs some kind of advice from experts lah. So it's this Director General who gives advice to the NPPC on the use of planning in the conservation, use and development of land in the country. To conduct research and publish accordingly the results of research on town planning in the country, which is quite important. This actually, the lack of this has led to the current situation of what? Of the overhang. And this also was mentioned by Prof. Jamil just now. The lack of focus on the second one, to conduct research and publish accordingly the results of research on town planning in the country. So this is quite important, but quite neglected or abandoned lah, this one. So we have to come back to the functions of the DG of JPBD or Plan Malaysia, which is do this to conduct research and publish accordingly. Normally, for housing in Malaysia, the Department of VSPD, the Valuation and Property Services Department, that's our department, the Real Estate Department in Malaysia. We publish our property reports every year, property market report together with the property stocks, the price and things like that. Okay, but that's on our side. That's not related to land use, and that somehow must be conveyed to planning so that they can make better decisions. That's something that is missing. The linkage between the Valuation and Property Services Department, who publish the property market report every year, with the people who are in charge with the land use policy, land use decisions in the country, which is the Plan Malaysia, which is the Department of Town and Country Planning. So there needs to be a link between these two departments. Anyway, finally, another function of the DG of Town and Country Planning is to establish and maintain relationships with state authorities in town planning matters, because planning is a concurrent item. So they really need to keep in touch with the state authorities, with the Chief Minister, with the State Director of the Town Planning Department in each state and things like that. Okay, now, what about the State Planning Committee? At the state level, state level, they have their own sub ministry, if I can say that, sub-authority lah. Sub-authority at the national level, they have the NPPC, the National Physical Planning Council, right? So at the state level, they have the State Planning Committee. What's the time now? 4:30. Anyway, State Planning Committee, Section 4, chaired by the Chief Minister, and the membership comprises the EXCOs, the State EXCOs, the State Secretary, SUK lah, for Malaysians, SUK. State EXCO is EXCO lah, Executive Councils. And State Directors of the related portfolios in terms of town planning, lands and mines, the PTG, this one, lands and mines, PTG, town planning, the perancangan bandar lah. State Economy Planning Unit, this one, SEPU, SEPC pula. SEPU, State Economic Planning Unit, otherwise known as SEDC, State Economic Development Unit. More familiar to us, right? SEDC. So this one lah, SEDC. So in Selangor, that is PKNS, for instance. In Terengganu, that's Permin, for instance. Mia tak tahu ni, I'm telling you. In Terengganu, Permin tau. Sebab they drop or they change the word economy into iktisad. So that's the Malay translation of economy. So Terengganu, they use the Kepadanan Memajukan Iktisad Negeri Terengganu. Iktisad means economy. So that's why it's Permin. So in Selangor, it's PKNS and so on in other states in Malaysia. Public works and etc. The functions of the State Planning Committee, Section 4, Sub 4, to promote conservation, use and development of all lands in the state, same just now, isn't it, with the function of planning. This is the core function of planning, town planning. So this is the responsibility of the SPC within their state to promote conservation, use and development of all lands in the state. To achieve sustainable development, conserve, use and development efficiently. To regulate, control, plan and coordinate all development activities in the state, to advise the state government regarding conservation, use and development of land, to advise. Again, they can advise, it's up to the state government whether to follow or not their advice. But that's their responsibility, their function. To undertake and promote publications. Again, like I said, same with MPPC just now. The DG planning just now. To undertake and promote publications. But you know, sometimes these tend to get overlooked. Not being focused on. Quite important actually, to prevent things like overhang and undersupply of certain types of properties such as low-cost housing, for instance. But now it's overbuilt. I think there's no problem with low-cost housing anymore. But it's just other things. The quantity is there. What about the quantity? Quantity is there. What about the quality? Quantity is there. What about the management and maintenance of low-cost housing? Local Planning Authority. Now, so just now was at the state level, whereby we have the SPC, the State Planning Committee. What about at the local level? So we go back to our friend last week, the local authorities. So at the local level, the local authorities are now known as local planning authorities when it comes to planning, when it comes to TCPA, Act 172. So now their role is not only the local authority, which is general, to ensure security, to provide services, to ensure well-being, things like that. Now we go to the more specific role of the local authorities, which is their role as the local planning authorities. Every local authority, it says here, is the local planning authority according to Section 5 Sub 1. So at Section 5 Sub 1 gives the power to the local authority to act as the local planning authority. Without Section 5 Sub 1, the local authority will not be given power to implement town planning within their local authority area. And any directives, for instance, development charge or planning permission requirements, these all can be challenged on the grounds of ultra vires. But with Section 5.1, the power is given or is conferred to the local authority to act as the local planning authority. Okay. So for areas not within local authority area, okay, now this is interesting because like we said before, the local authority is at the district level, but they don't control the areas within the district, not necessarily so. It's only areas gazetted as the local authority area. So some areas within the district may lie outside the boundaries of the local authority. And if you want to undertake any development within these areas outside the local authority area, okay, the planning authority will be the state director instead of the local authority. So who will decide on any planning permission, on development charge? It will be the state director instead of the local authority. I hope that's clear to everybody, because this goes back to our lecture last week, which discussed the definition of local authority area. So any area, any development occurring outside the local authority area, the planning authority will be the state director, not the local planning authority or the local authority. Now, what are the functions of the local planning authorities? The functions are given under section 6 sub 1. One is to regulate, control and plan the development and use of all lands and buildings within its area. So not just for lands, also for buildings. So they have the power, like I mentioned just now, to control or to protect old buildings, but we don't call them old in Malaysia, heritage buildings or historic buildings and so on, because they have the power and also actually have the responsibility to maintain heritage, and because heritage is part of sustainable development. You cannot just knock down all old buildings because some of the old buildings, they contain historic values, they contain architectural values, they contain cultural values. So those are the values that the local planning authorities need to protect, need to preserve. Okay. The second function is to undertake and promote publications relating to town and country planning and its methodology. Same with the responsibility of the state just now, state planning director, state planning committee, to perform such other functions as the state authority or the committee may from time to time assign to it. So anything, any extra functions beside these two, if the direction comes from the state authority or the state planning committee, the local authority has to undertake. Okay. What about this one? So at the state level, at the local level, there's also another level which is regional, regional planning authority, which is an addition to the TCPA amendment, which coincided with coincided with apa nama tu, with the regional economic plans, regional economic plans that the federal government imposed or implemented for Malaysia. So we need a regional planning authority for the regional economic region, for the economic regions in the country. So before, under Pak Lah, I'm not very sure if you guys remember this. I mean Malaysians lah, non-Malaysians, you definitely won't know this. Under the Prime Minister Abdullah Badawi, who is the 5th Prime Minister, okay, the 5th Prime Minister of Malaysia, he established regions, economic regions in Malaysia. He was the one who started it. So we had the North Economic NCER, the Northern Corridor Economic Region, NCER. We have the ECER, the East Coast Economic Region, East Coast, and then we have the North, and then we have the what else? ECER, Sabah Sarawak. I'm not very sure, but I can recall these two: NCER, ECER. Johor at that time, they had, even before Pak Lah, they had the SJER, South Johor Economic Region, which transformed into IRDA nowadays, but that's another story. That was not under the 5th Prime Minister of Malaysia. But anyway, due to the creation of the economic regions, the economic regions need to be planned properly, and that gave rise to the creation or the establishment of the Regional Planning Authority. Okay. Now, functions. Again, why did we have the regional economic development areas? Because they wanted to take they want to take advantage of apa of what's the term, economies of scale, for instance, economies of scale created by having large enough market compared to just one state. So having 3 states together under the economic region, okay, the economic region can take advantage of economies of scale, can take advantage of better planning and things like that, when more than one state work together to attract people to come to their region. Okay. Now, NPPC at the national level, the National Physical Plan Committee, may establish a regional planning authority for a region which consists of an area situated in 2 or more states. So RPA is for an area, an economic area, which comprises 2 or more states. Because sometimes it's very hard for the individual states to come together to plan for areas within their state. So there needs to be a joint planning authority known as the Regional Planning Authority. And the functions of the Regional Planning Authority to advise and assist the SPC and LPA. So the state and also the local planning authorities within the region pertaining to the development plans. So advise and assist the development plans appropriate for the region in accordance with the national policy. So one regional one economic region may have, for instance, 5 local authorities, and each local authorities have their own development plans, the local plans. So how do you ensure that these 5 plans gel together or complement each other rather than contradict each other? So that's when there's a need for a regional plan or regional planning authority to establish policies and to devise. For instance, this one is a good example for me to bring to tell you that the IRDA, the Iskandar Regional Development Authority in Johor, it comprised 5 flagships. 5 flagships, meaning they identified 5 different areas within the economic region, each with its own focus. For instance, one on education, the other one as a transport hub, another one will be on industrial and things like that. So these 5 flagships, okay, one of will involve maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 local authorities that must work together to ensure the success of the flagships. So it doesn't work if each local authority work on their own. So they need some kind of joint, some kind of unitary plan to oversee the smooth planning for each region, and then for the whole for each flagship, and then for the whole region. Okay, so that's why they have the Regional Planning Authority to establish policies and to devise a comprehensive regional plan to guide and coordinate development of the region. For instance, again, going back to IRDA, the Iskandar one, the Iskandar Economic Development, the Iskandar region, their vision was to become a metropolis of international standing. So they set that for the whole of the 5 flagships within the area. So at least all the local authorities will have something to refer to when they undertake the decisions or when they undertake development within their area. So you have this this mission, this vision set by the regional authority, which is to become a metropolis of an international standing. So that becomes the aim of the objective of the different local authorities within the area. So at least there's some guidance in terms of policy, in terms of regional plan to guide and coordinate development of the region, to plan and coordinate the provision of infra and facilities for the region. So again, the different flagships or the different areas within the region needs to be connected, right? So there needs to be, for instance, transport infrastructure. Again, there needs to be a body or an agency that oversees the smooth planning of infrastructure, that this road will be connected to another road within a district, and the timing is such that the whole road can be used together, things like that. To establish uniform process and procedures to be used by the federal, state and local governments concerned for the region, uniformity. To monitor and implement standards, guidelines and procedures in facilitating the development. And finally, to conduct research. Again, research is quite important. They need to compile the data, for instance. They need to analyze and also to plan forward. But this is something that that regional authorities are doing in Malaysia.